but I do understand how people just get frozen.
Well, about maybe 6-8 months ago, I was privy to see another, and this one was quite different because it was pretty much daylight out yet, and I was leaving work and heading to my car, and I saw this very bright, brilliant white, almost like a flashbulb type of light coming across the horizon, and it looked like it was slowing down. And I'm like looking at my car, and I'm where I'm standing. It's a good 500 yards. I'm thinking, can I get to the car and get to the camera and photograph this and get back in? No way. They'll find me laying there out of breath. The ambulance will just cart me away. And I'm looking at this thing, and it does slow down, and it turns upright, and it turns the brightest red I've ever seen in my life, and shoots straight up out of sight. And there was a gentleman standing aside of me, and I looked at him, and he was just agape. The mouth was down around the chest area, and his eyes were focused forward and straight up. And I said, "Did you see that?" And he said, "That's the biggest helicopter I ever saw." And I said, "There's no helicopter." He says, "In my mind, that's a helicopter. I'm out of here." And he left. So I really had reservations about making that report. I'm thinking, nobody's going to believe this. So I thought, no, the hell with it. I'll make the report. So I make the report. And 5 minutes later, one of the investigators calls me and says, "Hey, I got an identical report to yours, and the time difference is only 1 minute off." And the guy and his wife were 82 miles north of where I was standing.
Wow.
And I'm going like, you know what? I'm going to quit looking up. And people ask all the time, how do you see these things? Look up. That's...
And most people don't. Most people go about their life looking at the road ahead of them or whatever is in front of them, but not up. You're absolutely right, Butch. Butch, I'm curious, where does your research go from here? You get to a certain point. You've researched these mutilation cases and so forth.
Well, we'll keep the mutilations as an open case, and we'll always be checking on that. And of course, the case of the gentleman up in Montoursville is an open case with us. And we have a couple other open cases, and we have some new cases. We just got done with a case in at the Bell Bend nuclear plant here in Pennsylvania, where a lady who is very credible, as she teaches police officers for a living, and she's traveling home on a road, and a beautiful blue sky, and there's just this one odd-looking cloud in the sky. And, she says it's the only cloud in the sky, so she grabs her camera and takes a picture of it and sends it to me after she downloads it and says there's something inside this cloud. So I look at it, and a couple of my guys look at it, and they're all going like, yeah, there's something there, but, we don't know what it is. It just looks like a line. And so I sent it over to a fellow in England who took a look at it, who's an expert at that, and is part of that Mars group that over there that researches the Mars photographs. And he says, well, there's actually three objects in the cloud. At the bottom, the large line you see is a large saucer-type object. Above it is, at the 11 o'clock position, is a smaller saucer-type object with a beam going down to the larger one, and off to the right at about the 2 o'clock position, you have another one coming into view. And I'm like, that's great. And then so, now we're on the nuclear thing, and I want to tell you, there's more sightings of UFOs around nuclear plants in this country than I ever imagined. They're constantly showing up. And I'm thinking, like, okay, what do they need at a nuclear plant? These guys have propulsion that takes them through the galaxy at rates of speed, or they're interdimensional or whatever. But why the interest in the nuclear plants? And then you go back where they did, they shut down complete nuclear bases where there were nuclear weapons.
I'm aware of that. Butch, if you go back to the beginning of ufology, the modern beginning of ufology, it sort of coincides with the first detonation of a nuclear weapon. Now, you would think from any distance, the above-ground detonation of a nuclear weapon would get the attention of anybody interested in what's going on this little green planet. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember where I either read it or heard it at a conference or something like that, and where somebody says, they can just imagine the somebody up in space looking down when that was first detonated, going, "Oh my God, the kids have found the matches," and that's probably a very good reason How many times did we think during the Cold War that any day would be, a nuclear holocaust?
The last day. Butch, I've got to take another break, but when I come back, I'm wondering if statistically, with regard to abduction, you found any commonality in sex, age, race, religion. As you put the stats together, do we come up with anything that makes any sense at all? We'll be right back.